The day I decided to enter monk mode, I felt unstoppable. No distractions, no social life, no entertainment, no excuses. Just discipline. Wake up early, work for hours, gym, sleep. Repeat. Online, monk mode looks powerful. Cold showers, dark rooms, 5 a.m. alarms, grind, grind, grind. And I thought, this is what I need because I felt behind. Behind in career, behind financially, behind in life. So I did what most ambitious people do. I went extreme. Deleted apps, stopped hanging out, cut conversations short, removed everything non-productive. For the first week, it felt incredible. I was focused, disciplined, serious. But then something slowly started changing. Not my results, me. And I didn't realize it at first. But monk mode wasn't just removing distractions, it was removing balance. And the cost wasn't visible immediately. It showed up quietly, in my energy, in my mood, in my motivation. And that's when I started questioning something dangerous. Is extreme discipline actually sustainable or just dramatic? The second week is where things started to feel different. On paper, I was winning. More hours worked, more tasks completed, less distraction. If someone looked at my routine, they'd say, this is elite. But internally, something felt off. I stopped laughing as much, stopped replying properly to friends, stopped enjoying small things. Every moment became measured. Is this productive? Is this useful? Is this moving me forward? If the answer was no, I cut it. At first, that felt powerful. Then it started feeling mechanical. I remember one evening, a friend invited me out for a simple dinner. Nothing crazy, just food and conversation. My first thought wasn't, that sounds nice. It was, that's 3 hours lost. Lost. That word hit me later. Since when did connection become loss? That's when I realized monk mode quietly changes your value system. You start valuing output over experience, efficiency over emotion, progress over presence. And the scary part, the world praises you for it. People compliment your discipline. They admire your focus. They call you serious. But inside, something starts drying out. Because humans aren't machines built for constant optimization. We're cyclical. We need intensity, but we also need recovery. Monk mode ignores that. It treats life like a straight line. More effort equals more success. But real growth isn't linear. It's waves. Push, recover, push, recover. When you stay in push mode too long, you don't become stronger. You become brittle. And brittleness doesn't show immediately. It shows when something small goes wrong, when a task fails, when motivation dips, when you feel tired for no clear reason. Suddenly, the structure feels heavy, not empowering, heavy. And that's when I noticed something else. I wasn't building discipline anymore. I was building pressure. Pressure to maintain the image, pressure to not break the streak, pressure to stay extreme. And pressure without flexibility eventually cracks. That's when I started asking myself a hard question. Was monk mode actually making me better, or was it just making me rigid? That question stayed in my head for days, because I didn't want to quit. Quitting felt weak, and monk mode trains you to see softness as weakness. Rest becomes laziness. Fun becomes distraction. Balance becomes mediocrity. So I kept pushing. Wake up early, work longer, ignore the mental fatigue. But something subtle started happening. My creativity dropped. I could execute tasks. I could follow plans. I could grind. But original thinking? It slowed down. Ideas didn't flow the same way. Because creativity doesn't thrive under constant pressure. It needs space. And monk mode leaves no space. It fills every hour with intention, but removes reflection. I also noticed my motivation changing. In the beginning, I was driven by ambition. After a while, I was driven by fear. Fear of losing progress, fear of slipping back, fear of not being disciplined enough. That's not strength. That's anxiety dressed as productivity. And here's the truth most people won't say. Extreme discipline is easier than balanced discipline because extremes are clear. No distractions, no socializing, no breaks. Simple rules. Balance is harder. It requires awareness. It requires adjusting. It requires listening to your energy instead of silencing it. Monk mode gave me structure, but it also removed flexibility. And without flexibility, discipline becomes fragile. The moment life interrupts your routine, travel, illness, family event, everything collapses because you built a system that only works in perfect conditions. That's when I realized something powerful. Real discipline isn't about isolation. It's about integration. Can you focus deeply without cutting yourself off from life? Can you work hard without making work your identity? Can you be ambitious without becoming emotionally unavailable? Those questions mattered more than any 5 a.m. wake-up time. And slowly, I started shifting. Not abandoning discipline, but softening its edges. Because strength without softness turns into burnout. The shift didn't happen in one dramatic moment. There wasn't a big breakdown, no explosive burnout. It was quieter than that. One morning, I woke up, followed my routine perfectly, finished my workout, sat at my desk, and felt nothing. No pride, no excitement, no hunger, just execution. I was doing everything right, but I didn't feel alive. That scared me more than distraction ever did. Because at least when you're distracted, you feel something. Here, I felt efficient, but empty. And that's when it clicked. Monk mode helped me remove noise, but it also removed color. Life became black and white, productive or waste, useful or useless, on track or off track. There was no space for joy without justification. If I watched something, it had to be educational. If I met someone, it had to be networking. If I rested, it had to be recovery optimization. Everything needed a purpose. Nothing was allowed to just exist. And that mindset slowly tightens around you. You start calculating life instead of living it. That's when I asked myself something uncomfortable. If I reach my goals like this, will I even enjoy them? Because what's the point of building a powerful future if you become emotionally smaller in the process? Ambition is beautiful. Discipline is powerful. But when discipline turns into isolation, it stops being growth. It becomes protection. Protection from distraction, protection from vulnerability, protection from unpredictability. But unpredictability is part of being human. You can't optimize it away. So instead of asking, how do I go harder? I started asking, how do I go sustainably? How do I build intensity without killing joy? How do I work deeply without disconnecting completely? And that question changed the direction of everything. I stopped chasing intensity, and I started chasing rhythm. Instead of living in permanent monk mode, I created seasons. There were days where I went all in, phone away, deep work blocks, serious focus. But there were also days where I intentionally allowed space. Long walks without purpose, dinner without checking time, conversations that didn't lead anywhere. At first, that felt uncomfortable, like I was losing my edge. But something surprising happened. My energy stabilized. I didn't feel those extreme highs of motivation followed by crashes. I felt steady. and steady is underrated. Because monk mode gives you spikes. Spikes of discipline, spikes of productivity, spikes of identity. But spikes are hard to maintain. Rhythm builds endurance. I also redefined what discipline meant to me. Before, discipline meant restriction. Now, discipline meant alignment. Am I doing what actually matters? Not what looks impressive, not what sounds intense, but what moves my life forward in a sustainable way. Sometimes that meant saying no. Sometimes it meant saying yes. The difference was intention. I realized I don't need to isolate myself to grow. I need to manage my inputs wisely. I don't need to remove all pleasure. I need to prevent pleasure from controlling me. That's a completely different mindset. Monk mode taught me control, but balance taught me longevity. And if you're building anything meaningful, a career, a body, a skill, a business, longevity beats intensity every time. Because success isn't built in one extreme season. It's built in consistent, human, imperfect cycles. That's what I finally understood. You don't need to disappear from the world to become powerful. You need to learn how to stay grounded inside it. Now, when I see people announcing, I'm going monk mode for 6 months, I understand the emotion behind it. It's not really about discipline. It's about frustration. It's about feeling behind, feeling distracted, feeling like life is slipping through your fingers. And extreme action feels powerful when you're overwhelmed. Cut everything, focus only on goals, become untouchable. It sounds heroic, but real growth isn't dramatic, it's designed. You don't need to disappear to evolve. You need clarity about what actually deserves your energy. Monk mode can be useful, short term, as a reset, as a boundary setting phase, as a way to prove to yourself that you can control your impulses. But it's not meant to be your personality. It's not meant to replace connection or creativity or joy. Because at the end of the day, what are you building? A successful life or a controlled one? There's a difference. Control without flexibility turns into rigidity, and rigidity eventually breaks. Strength with adaptability lasts. That's what I learned the hard way. Now I still wake up early, I still train, I still work deeply, but I also allow life to breathe. I allow spontaneity. I allow rest without guilt. I allow moments that don't convert into productivity. And strangely, my results improved. Not because I worked more, but because I worked better. Clearer mind, stable energy, sustainable focus. Monk mode isn't evil, it's just incomplete. Discipline is powerful, but discipline without humanity becomes hollow. So if you're thinking about going extreme right now, ask yourself, are you building strength or are you running from imbalance? Because real power isn't isolation, it's integration. It's being able to chase ambition hard without losing yourself in the process. And that balance, that's the real mastery.